Hey friend, this is Jennifer, and this is the Jennifer Allwood Show, the podcast for women who want to learn how to live an intentional life or build their creative business. I'll be giving you my very best business tips, bringing you interesting guests, giving you a daily dose of Jesus, and I'm committed to always keeping it real. Grab a cup of coffee and let's dive in. I'm so honored that you're here. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast this week. This is Jennifer Allwood, as you probably know, since it is called the Jennifer Allwood Show, and I am so glad to have you here. So we are going to be talking this week on episode 117 about the Equipped Women's Conference that we just had in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago. And since this is all like fresh in my mind, and I have a tendency to like forget things 10 minutes after they've happened, I figured I better do a podcast while I still like had it even, relatively in my brain. And so I want to kind of chat with you guys about, I was thinking about going from the perspective of what we really did good, what we need to improve on, what we'll do different next time. And instead I'm like, I'm going to talk to them about if you're going to have a conference, like what I want you guys to be thinking about. And maybe it's not a conference to the proportion that mine was, but maybe you're thinking about having your first meet and greet. Maybe you're thinking about having your first meetup. Maybe you're thinking about starting a mastermind. Hello. For those of you who are waiting for the information on my mastermind, hang tight. Details are coming, okay? But I want to kind of give you some thoughts, some things that you can run with in your business. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And first, I'm going to chat with you real quick about a woman who was at my conference. Her name's Cindy Scott, and her business is called 2rooster.com, like T-O-O, like too roostery. Like I got too much rooster, like I got too many feathers, like that, like 2rooster.com. And she was at my Equipped conference as an interactive painter. You guys, this was so cool. We had so many creatives there who were offering their gifts to the world by way of like gifts they were giving away on stage, or in this case, Cindy had people like paint on a canvas. And then at the end of the first day on this, and second day, she was like taking what they painted on this canvas, all these different shapes and words and pictures, and she was making them into this beautiful tapestry of things. We ended up, and it said the word equipped, which is the name of my women's conference, and we ended up auctioning that off. We had a woman named Regina Sellers, who I believe, please God, let me have been the right name for that. My whole team's going to be messaging me. Her name was not Regina Sellers, but I think it was, team, who purchased that painting then for $1,100. And all of those proceeds went to an organization in Kansas City called Run to Stop It, which helps to rescue women and children out of sex trafficking. So Cindy Scott, you are the real MVP. Thank you for that. Here's what she wrote on iTunes as a podcast review, and that's my whole point. Real and ready to speak some truth. It is so refreshing to find Jennifer motivating, empathetic about what it takes and how to start a business, and brave enough to be vulnerable and real in regards to business, life, and faith. And I just wanted to say, Cindy, thank you for leaving me a review. The reviews matter. I love shouting out people's businesses when they do leave a review over on iTunes. So please go do that. And Cindy, in addition, I just pray a blessing over you and your 2Rooster business. We were so honored to have you as a part of my Women's Equipped conference. So let's talk about the conference real fast. All right. First of all, I think it's important to know, if you don't already, how I feel about conferencing and just speaking on a stage in general. So this has been a thing that God has been, wrestling around with me on for years now. And I just feel like I'm like one of those WWE wrestlers who's finally like tapping out and just being like, fine, I'm done. Fine, I'll speak. Because he keeps putting me on stages and in front of people. And then I had a chance to do my own conference. And for several months, my team knows I wrestled with God because I was like, I don't want to. Because here's what I know about conferences. They are a lot of work. They are a lot of money, and there's no guarantee that you're actually going to have people come and show up, even with an audience of my size. Who knew? What if we only got 2 people in the audience? And so God and I wrestled about this, but what was happening out in the marketplace is I was seeing tons of business conferences that were offering really sexy strategies. So great Facebook ad content, how to start an email funnel, how to build your business in the online space. Like I've gone to so many personal development and business conferences to build my business in the last couple of years that like, I love that. I love that. But I was walking away from these conferences, my friends, feeling like, well, that's great that all these women in the room just got some strategy, but how does that even matter if in her heart, she still thinks that she's not good enough to build a business, or she's still not worthy of making money that a business would bring in? Or what if she's still more concerned about what, her sister-in-law thinks of her than what she is about being true to what God's asking her to do in terms of building a business? Like, it won't matter if they get strategy if they still have heart and soul work to do. And so the long and short of the story is I was out on a WOG a little over a year ago, and a WOG is a walk jog for those of us who are over 45, and was listening to Eminem because God needs or loves Eminem too, and God's like, Jen, turn the music off. So then I was just in silence, and I was thinking about a conference I had just come back from, and was thinking to myself, man, so wish that there was a business conference that included, people of faith, that included my Christian faith in there. And felt like I heard the Lord say, well, Jen, you're it. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't. Like, no. N-O, capital N, capital O, all the emojis. I'm not doing it. And for a couple of months, I was irritated because I know, how much goes into a conference. God knows how I feel about public speaking. And at the end of the day, he won. So we had a conference. We had a conference the first week of May. So even though it wasn't something that I wanted to do, what I said in the conference and what I'll say here on my podcast is that when it comes to my faith, I so want to be somebody who's obedient. The Bible talks about how God looks to and fro for people who are willing just to say yes. And I want a reputation of being a yes girl in heaven. I want God to be like, who can I ask to do this hard thing? Okay, I can ask Jen. Jen has said yes before, even when she doesn't want to. Let's ask her. And so I felt like I was being asked to have a conference. And I had to remember it was more about the people attending than it was about me by a long shot. And for the people who are in my inner circle, my creator's roadmap, my paint finish of the month, for the entrepreneurs who I'm trying to encourage on this podcast and, at jenniferallwood.com, it's important to me that I do big, hard, and scary things if they are helpful to them. And you know what? Even if they're not helpful to them, sometimes it's just the matter of being obedient to what God's asking you to do when you don't want to do it. That's all that matters. And so needless to say, we had the conference. It's a couple weeks out and we learned a lot. So one of our guest speakers at the conference, the only guy besides Mr. Magic that was allowed to be at the conference, was a man by the name of Brian Dixon. And Brian is somebody that I've known for several years. And I remember when I told Brian that we were having a conference, I'll never forget what he said. Well, Jen, he said something along the lines of, nobody wants to have their first conference. Everybody wants to have their second conference, because in the first conference, it's basically just like learning. It's basically just learning in real time, which, oh, by the way, means you have an audience of 600 people. We had over 300 women who we called butts and seats, like, physically there on location in Kansas City. And then we had another 300 women plus who attended virtually with virtual tickets. By the way, if you're interested in purchasing one of those, you can go to jenniferallwood.com/conference and have the recordings emailed to you. And I have heard the recordings are absolutely just as powerful as it was being there in real life. So I love that Brian said that. And now that the conference is behind us, I can tell you there are no truer words ever spoken, because in the first conference, like, even though you think that you're like thinking of all the things, like, how can you possibly think of all the things when you just don't know what you just don't know? I mean, I love that saying by Oprah, when you know better, you do better. Now we know. Now we know some things, and I want to share some of those things with you. So if you've ever thought about having a conference, I'm going to give you 5 things that I think it's important that you know, so that you go into it with eyes wide open and can make the best experience for both you and your team and the people you're having the conference for. So number 1, assume that the conference is going to take way more work, way more time, and way more expense than what you probably are planning. So on your first conference, you're really doing seed planting, which sometimes means seed planting can even look like financial investment planting. Does that make sense? So on the first conference, you're planting the seeds that there will be other conferences, that next time there will probably be more. Nobody really wants to come to the first thing a lot of times. They want to come to the second, third, and fourth time after the kinks have been worked out. I mean, isn't that true? Like, when you think about you going to something that's brand new and darn good and well they're going to be working out kinks, like it's going to a restaurant on opening night. And sometimes you're like, oh, maybe I'll just wait until they're like 2 weeks in, and then they'll, the cooks will be doing a better job on the food, and the greeting staff will have a quicker greet time, and they'll have worked the kinks out. It's the same thing with a conference. And so several people said to me, Jennifer, on your first conference, don't plan on making much, if any, money. Just assume that you're seed planting. And this is a good investment because we were really, in our case for this conference, we were really investing into souls and investing into the future for women, both in their business and just in their life. So It will take more time, more work, and probably more money in terms of a budget than what you're anticipating. Now that we've gone through one conference, we have a good idea of what budget will be for the next one. But on the first one, you just don't know what you don't know. And so that was a little tricky, and just know that going in. Second point, your vision for a conference is so important. And I'm talking about you, the person that's actually the face of your business and going to be putting the conference on. Now, listen, this can feel a lot like pressure. It can feel pressury because your whole team, and in my case, I have a team of, 6 women plus my husband who work for me. And, they're looking at me, Jen, how do you see this working out? And a lot of time I'm like, I don't know. I don't even see how life's working out tomorrow. Like, how do I know how this conference is going to look? But here's what I do know. I had a dream on a Sunday. How many of you are nappers on Sundays? Like, to the glory of God, right? And this was before we had Ari, by the way, because Sunday naps have been pretty much nil since bringing in a 4-year-old. However, we started this, like I said, last October. And so I had a nap. During the nap, I dreamed about the conference. I dreamt the price. I dreamt that I would be on stage in my home church. I dreamt that we would have an audience full of women. I dreamt that we would have a VIP night at our home around our pool. And so I executed completely on what I had dreamed. But I didn't get a lot of the details. I didn't get any details in the dream for speakers, what the stage should look like, any of those things. But here's what I did know. I knew that I really wanted the overall feeling that the women left with from this event to be one that of such excellence. Like, I wanted them to feel like when they were at my event that we tended to every possible need they may have. Whether that was just deodorant and hairspray in the ladies' room, or whether that was having a VIP bag, or anybody getting a bag at my event that had more than a koozie and a pin in it. Can I say yes and amen? I mean, come on, ladies, we're better than koozies and pins. And I can't even tell you the number of conferences I've went to where we get like a tablet. Oh no, we had earrings in our swag bags. We had, real life things that real life women would actually go home and really use. And when you have a higher price point for a ticket, you better have some higher price point items in that swag bag. And so I know that for me, all I could keep telling my team is that I was just really committed to excellence at every turn. So for us, since we were combining faith and business at this conference, that meant us having a prayer team. We flew in my friend, Carrie Rabina, she's my best business buddy, from Minneapolis to head up the prayer team here in Kansas City. I asked people who were near and dear to me, Laura Schmid, my very best friend on the planet, Jill Noble, a woman of excellence who's been like a spiritual mother to me, if they would volunteer on the prayer team. We asked people from my church. We had women available to pray for any woman there at the conference at any second. That was important to me. And I think that you have to determine, what do you want a woman walking away with? And what I imagined happening when people came to my conferences, I imagined them being hit in the face with the gospel in like the first 10 minutes of being at the conference and being like, okay, what is happening here? This is full-blown church. Because let me tell you something, this was full-blown church. This was full-blown church. I know I was talking to my friend Jamie Ivey like the night before the conference. And by the way, Jamie had thought we'd had several conferences. I was like, no, girl, no. I know you have conferences all the time, but we are conference virgins. we have never done this before. And she was like, you're kidding. I figured just by, you've had several. I'm like, no. We had like a thing in Kansas City for 45 people a couple years ago. But I've never had 600 women attending live and virtually something where we've mixed faith and business. And I told Jamie, we are starting with worship and we're going right into a session of me talking about how forgiveness and bitterness are holding, or unforgiveness and bitterness are holding your business back. And she was like, oh, so you're going straight up church. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going straight up church. And I loved that she recognized that. And so I knew that if I'm going straight up church at a business conference, within the first couple minutes, it may trigger some things in women. And when we get triggered, we often need someone to help us really walk through and navigate those emotions. So, trying to come from a position of excellence, we brought in people. We invested in people to come in and pray for any woman who was there at the conference who would perhaps need that. You figuring out what the vision for your conference is so important. I wanted every woman who was at this conference to get insane value for the money she put in. My husband, you guys, he had the food covered for these ladies. We didn't want them to have to leave at lunch We wanted them to have lunch provided for them at no extra cost. We wanted it to be beautiful. We wanted it to taste good. We had all these caterers, giving us samples, and we were tasting and doing all these taste tests. And I flew in my team so we could do taste tests. And, we were constantly thinking about how can this be the very best experience for the women who are there so that they'll want to come again next year. So they'll change, they'll go home like not being the same person so that their life will feel different and their business will look different because of what happened here at this conference. We were from every person on my team, even down to the security guards, everybody was committed to excellence. And I'm so super grateful for that. But it has to start with you, the person who's got the vision for the conference, because perhaps you want yours to look something completely different, and that's okay. But just know what you're trying to send people home with. That way you can work backwards from there. Third thing, when you're thinking about putting together a conference, I want you to do you. Listen, I don't know of any conference on the face of the planet that is a business conference that starts with a session on unforgiveness and bitterness and ends with a session that has a full-blown altar call. And in my head, this is what I kept seeing over and over. And I kept arguing with God because I'm like, seriously, Lord, I've never led anyone to Christ other than 3 of our 4 kids. We just got Ari, so that'll come. I've led my children to Christ, but I've been a believer since I was a teenager and I've never led anybody to Christ. And you're going to ask me to do an altar call at a business conference? And God, being a gentleman, was like, yes, yes, girl, I am. And I'm like, holy crap. So I did me at this conference, which was obedience to what God asked me to do, and it was full-blown church. Now, what I need you to do is I need you to figure out, what does a conference look like for you? Especially some of you who have been to a lot of conferences, so you've seen a lot of things, right? And you've seen a lot of upsells from the back of the room. And you've seen a lot of, you get to the conference and then they're pitching the heck out of you. My team and I decided early on, that is not what this conference is about. I know we left money on the table by not pitching anybody while they were at this conference, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I had people telling me, Jennifer, you need to try to sell something while you were there. Nope. I could not wrap my head around that. Now, grace to you if that's what you're doing, but I just need you to know that it's so important. I had to do for me what I felt like was in alignment with what God was telling me and where my values and my integrity was lining up. You've got to do for you. Even if it looks different than every other conference you've been to, even if you've never seen it before, even if you've never heard of anybody doing it this way, I want you to do it your way. And I'm going to tell you why. This is the very thing, somebody tweet this. This is the very thing that's going to set you apart from everybody else in your industry. So many people are just doing a carbon copy of what they're seeing other people in their industry doing, and then it's all just lookalikes. Honey, you do you. You do your kind of conference. I have never seen a faith and business conference for women with an altar call, for people leaving stuff at the altar who needed to forgive things and get out of a life of bitterness. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a business conference with a whole prayer team that people could access. I've never seen that. I've never been to a business conference where there wasn't a pitch. And I was 100% okay with being the first to do that I was aware of. I want you to be 100% okay with doing it your way. Girl, it's got your name on it. You do you. You do it the way God tells you and don't look back. Number 4, you're going to need help. Hey. I don't know why I'm singing because it's nothing to sing about. You're going to need a lot of help to put on a decent conference. Now, I wanted to just give you an idea of what some of our help looked like. Okay, so we had the whole team that were at my church, people that were on staff for my church. We had a whole worship team. We had a whole team of people who were doing the audio, the video, doing the things that you guys, I don't know the first thing about that. Like, you can't know all the things. Use some of that money you're bringing in from your conference and put it right back into the conference so that the experience is exceptional for the people who are there. We had a security team. We had a cleanup team. We had a prayer team. We had people feeding my attendees. We had a lot of help. We hired project managers. Is that what it's called? No, party planners, event planners. Thank you, Jesus. We did event planners. We had people helping us with our social media. We had a full-time videographer there. We had people taking photos. We had all of the things. Why? Because all of those things and that, being committed to excellence that I talked about earlier and taking the finances and just putting them right back into the actual conference are going to help the next conference to be such larger proportions and so many more people, because hopefully those women walked away just like with their minds blown. just feeling like, wow, that is the best conference I ever went to. And by the way, we had so many of you private message me and DM me. And if you want to look at some of their photos, you can go look at like hashtag I am equipped 2019 and just see photo after photo after photo after photo on Instagram. Last time I looked, there were like 300 and some photos on there. Thank you so much for that. So hire help for your conference. As the person leading the conference, setting it up, whatever, got the vision for it, you can't do all the things. One of the best things I've ever done is take the Kolbe test, Kolbe. I had a business coach instruct me to take that test like 5-6 years ago. And basically what it showed me is, so basically it looks at 4 or 5 different areas, I think it's 4, of ability that you have in your business, like to execute things, to integrate things, to start on new ideas, to find information, to be like a fact finder. And then you take this test and it tells you like where your business strength is at. And it rates you out of 10, okay? Everything was like in the gutter for me except quick start, which was at like, I think a 9. It's either an 8 or a 9. I'm pretty sure it was a 9. So what that means when I look at it is the only thing I'm good at is dreaming up ideas. That's the only thing I'm good at. I'm good at casting the vision. And for all those other things, the research, the actually making it happen, the technical piece of making sure the video worked and everything. If I try to mess around with any of that, it will be a hot stinking mess. I have to leave that sort of thing to the people that are best at that and me only focus on the things that I'm best at that. So my point number 4 is if you're going to have a conference, get help, hire help, stay in your lane. You do the thing only you can do, but you have somebody else figuring out how you're going to stream this thing into a Facebook group. You don't need to be worried about that. You worry about how people are going to feel at the conference, the overall vision for the conference, what you want them to leave with, who you want to speak there, how you see people feeling about it, what you want them to walk away with, what you want them to say on social afterwards. But you don't worry about all the things that you don't need to worry about. And number 5, if you're going to have a conference, use social media, man, from a million different angles. Use your social media to be selling the conference up front. Use your social media to be promoting the conference while it's there. We had the hashtag I am equipped 2019. We had a gorgeous like backdrop that we had all the pictures taken in front of. Give people picture taking opportunities because what women do you not know who don't like dressing up, getting cute, standing in front of a cute wall and posting a picture on Instagram? Come on now. And that's so helpful for just when people see that over and over in their feed, then they start going, I wonder what that Equipped conference in Kansas City is all about. And, hopefully at some point, those people will be your next attendees. We had a full-time videographer there who is taking snippets of the conference and repurposing it onto social media. We asked people to be posting their pictures. We had a photographer of my own there, my friend Amy Decker from Radiant Photography. She was posting still photos, but all of those things like using social media to seed plant for the next year is so super important. So to recap, number 1, it's going to take you more time, more energy, and more money than you thought. Number 2, your vision for the person who's putting on the conference is so important. Number 3, you do you. Let everybody else do their conference. You do something different. Number 4, get help so that you stay in your lane. And number 5, use social media. Use it to be talking about the conference that's going on now. Use it to be selling the one that's coming up in the future, but use your social media. So yeah, guys, in the end, I'm just so glad that we did this conference. And I just want to give just a little bit of a cheesy praise report here because even though the conference was the bomb, and I'm talking, my speakers on stage were amazing. We had 4 guest speakers. They were so good. They delivered such incredible words. We had breakout sessions both day where women were learning like about Facebook ads and email funnels and Instagram and how to be a personal brand on social media, how to start a podcast. I mean, we had tons of breakout sessions giving them real strategy. But for me, the best part of the conference was at the end, doing the very thing that I wanted to do the least. When God said you're going to do an altar call at the end of this business conference, I was like, oh, come on, Lord, anything but that. But friends, not that it's about the numbers, but I need you to know we saw at least 12 hands go up for women who gave their life to Christ that day at a business conference. And I need you to know all of heaven was rejoicing, and I believe still is. I mean, it's never really about business, at least for me. Did I hope that women walked away smarter in some areas about their business? Absolutely. But what I really hoped is that they gained a level of freedom at this business conference. And they came to know Jesus in a real personal way at my business conference, because that's when everything changes. That's when everything changes. That's when real freedom will happen in a business. So to see over 12 women give their life to Christ, and those were just the hands that we were able to count quickly in the dark. And we had over 100 women get prayed for by my prayer team in those 2 days on a one-on-one basis. We had people healed. We had atheists there at the conference that walked away, either as believers or curious. And for that, I'm forever grateful. So I'm so glad that God asked me to be a part of what he's doing in business in 2019. I mean, seriously, I'm so excited. And I know you guys are already asking about 2020, the Equip Conference in 2020. We're doing it. I mean, how can we not do it? We had 600 women that attended this conference virtually and in person. How can we not do it? We will be putting together the conference for 2020. Right now, what we're trying to determine as a team is I've got a book that's coming out summer of 2020. So we are trying to position the conference and the book launch at the same time, and we will let you know all of the things, I promise you. So go to jenniferallwood.com/conference if you want to get the recordings of the conference. You'll get everything from the main stage. So you won't have the breakout sessions, but you'll have myself speaking twice. You'll see the altar call. You'll see the active women, leaving things at the altar day one who needed to forgive people and lay down bitterness. You will see all the other amazing speakers, all the worship. So you can get that at jenniferallwood.com/conference. And, we are still reeling in terms of just people DMing us, just the amazing testimonies that are coming out of it, the beautiful friendships, the healings, all the things. And I cannot literally thank you enough if you were there, either personally or watching or just there in heart. So next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about what to do when you have a business idea that fails. And for those of you who are wondering, has anything ever gone sideways and flopped in your business, Jennifer? Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, these are the things people don't want to tell you about. But I'm going to talk to you about next week because there are so many entrepreneurs whose sometimes their first idea flops, their second idea flops, and then they get gun shy. Listen, we've got a podcast for you next week. If that's you, if you've either had a business flop or you've had an idea flop or you just feel like a flop, come back next week, listen to the podcast. If you don't subscribe to this, would you go now? Here on iTunes or wherever you're watching, Stitcher, or all the things. I don't even know the fancy words. My team's going to hate me for that, but I don't even know where you can go. I don't even know where to go to listen to me. I'm sorry. But there should be a button that says subscribe. And when you hit that, all that means is that every week when I come out with a new podcast episode, your phone will have a little notification and it'll say, hey girl, Jen has a podcast. It's entitled blah, blah, blah. Would you like to listen now? Hit here. That's all you're going to get. So hit subscribe. If you get a chance, leave us a review on iTunes. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for all the things. And until next week, I hope you'll stay creative. Bye-bye. Hey friend, thank you so much for listening to the podcast again this week. I'm so honored that you're here and that you just listen week in and week out and that you share the Jennifer Allwood Show with your friends and family. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or if you're an Android user, go download the Stitcher app and you can subscribe there so that you know every single week when a new episode releases. Also, if you have any time to leave us a review, these reviews are super important in getting guests for the show and sponsors for the show. And so we'd appreciate it if you have just a second to leave us a review. That would be amazing. Thank you guys again for being here. And until next week, stay creative.